It is the middle of the night. The fire has burned down to almost nothing. Outside, somewhere in the dark, something is moving. You cannot see it. You cannot hear it. But the animal lying beside you can. Its ears rotate before you even stir. A low rumble rises in its chest. And just like that, whatever was out there turns around. You go back to sleep. You have no idea how close it just got. For at least 15,000 years, and possibly as many as 40,000, this was the reality of human life. Not a pet curled on a cushion, a partner, an alarm system, a hunting weapon, a heat source, a survival tool so deeply woven into human existence that some researchers now believe our species may not have outlasted our competitors without it. This is the story of how dogs did not just join human civilization, they helped build it. Start at the beginning. Around 40,000 years ago, your ancestors were sharing the planet with another human species, Homo neanderthalensis. Neanderthals were not primitive brutes. They were intelligent, strong, cold-adapted, and had survived ice ages that would have killed most creatures. They used tools. They buried their dead. They had fire. And yet, somewhere between 40,000 and 30,000 years ago, they disappeared. Gone. And your ancestors' anatomically modern Homo sapiens remained. Researchers have debated why for decades. Better language, better tools, better social networks. But in 2015, a book published by Harvard University Press introduced a hypothesis that stopped many anthropologists cold. The title was straightforward: The Invaders. The argument was not. Anthropologist Pat Shipman proposed that one of the decisive advantages Homo sapiens held over Neanderthals was not a weapon or a brain structure. It was a wolf, or rather a wolf, in the process of becoming something new. The timing matters here. Ancient DNA evidence now places the divergence of dogs from their wolf ancestors at somewhere between 40,000 and 15,000 years ago. The earliest proto-dogs appear in archaeological sites across Europe and Asia, right at the moment when Neanderthals were vanishing and modern humans were expanding. That overlap is not random. It is a pattern. Think about what a proto-dog gave your ancestors that Neanderthals did not have. Hearing that extends 3 times farther than yours in certain frequencies. A nose that can detect a scent trail days old. The ability to chase prey over distances that would exhaust a human sprinter. And crucially, the social instinct to work in coordinated groups. Flanking, cutting off, cornering game that your ancestors could then close in on and kill. Neanderthals hunted alone or in small groups, ambushing at close range. Your ancestors hunted with dogs. That is not a minor logistical difference. That is a completely different relationship with the food supply. But hunting is only one piece of the story. To understand the full picture, you need to understand how the partnership began in the first place. And this is where the research gets genuinely strange. The most obvious explanation has always been that ancient humans simply adopted wolf pups. Hunter-gatherers across the world have always had a habit of taking in young animals and raising them. A wolf pup raised from infancy would imprint on humans, be tolerated by the group, and over generations, those with calmer temperaments and stronger social bonds would be the ones who stayed close, bred near camps, and passed those traits on. This is called the cross-species adoption hypothesis, and it is intuitive. But it may not be the full story. In 2021, researchers published a study in the journal Science, proposing something more counterintuitive. The key, they argued, was protein. Specifically, the problem with too much of it. Here's a fact most people do not know about their own biology. You are not a true carnivore. Your liver can only metabolize so much protein at once. Eat too much lean meat, and your liver becomes overwhelmed, producing a toxic buildup of nitrogen compounds in the blood. Early Arctic and subarctic hunters knew this as rabbit starvation, the deadly syndrome, where you eat nothing but lean meat and still waste away. Fat and carbohydrates were not luxury additions to the Paleolithic diet. They were metabolic necessities. Wolves have no such limitation. They are obligate carnivores. Their livers evolved to process pure protein efficiently, for months at a time if necessary. Now, picture a Paleolithic winter camp in the frozen north. Your ancestors have just brought down a large mammoth or bison. They carve out the fat-rich organs, the marrow, the calorie-dense tissue they need. The lean muscle, the protein-heavy scraps their bodies cannot handle in excess, they leave behind. Wolves come to the edges of the camp, not to attack, to scavenge what humans cannot use. Over thousands of years, the wolves that were least reactive to humans, the ones who did not flee at the sight of a fire, the ones who could approach close enough to take the scraps without triggering aggression, were the ones who survived and reproduced near human settlements. And the humans who tolerated these animals gained something they had not planned on: early warning, warmth, help on the hunt. The data supports this type. Virtually every Pleistocene archaeological site with protodog remains comes from environments that were cold, subarctic, or Arctic at the time. The protein hypothesis fits the geography almost perfectly. The site of Predmosty in what is now the Czech Republic, dated to approximately 28,500 years ago, contains some of the most compelling early evidence. Paleontologist Micha Germain-Pré and her colleagues analyzed skulls from this Gravettian site and identified specimens with the shortened snouts and wider brain cases that distinguish early domestic dogs from wild wolves. Dental microwear analysis showed these proto-dogs were consuming harder, more processed food than wolves at the same site, consistent with eating camp scraps rather than hunting large prey themselves. They were already becoming something different. By 8,000 years ago, the partnership had advanced far enough to leave pictures. Petroglyphs carved into sandstone at Shuweimus and Juba in northwestern Saudi Arabia show hunting scenes in remarkable detail. Dogs on leashes, dogs flanking gazelle, dogs working in coordinated groups with human hunters. These are not accidental companions. These are trained working animals doing a specialized job. Then there is Bonn Oberkassel. In 1914, quarry workers in Germany uncovered a burial site containing 2 human skeletons, a man and a woman, and the bones of a dog. Analysis revealed the burial to be approximately 14,223 years old, making it the oldest confirmed domestic dog burial ever found. But what a 2018 re-examination by veterinarian and researcher Luc Janssens of Leiden University revealed was not just age. It was meaning. The dog, a juvenile of around 27 weeks, had survived at least 2 severe bouts of canine distemper, a virus that causes fever, vomiting, seizures, and neurological damage. For a young dog to survive this infection even once, let alone twice, it would have required weeks of intensive care. Feeding by hand, cleaning, warmth. The dog would have been no use as a working animal during this time. It could not hunt. It could not guard. It was a drain on resources in a world where resources could mean the difference between surviving winter and not. Your ancestors kept it alive anyway. Janssens and his team concluded that this was the earliest direct evidence of dogs being kept not purely for utility, but for something resembling emotional attachment. These were not tools being maintained. These were companions being loved. Think about what that means. 14,000 years ago, someone trudging through the end of the last ice age looked at a sick, useless, resource-consuming puppy and decided it was worth keeping alive. The emotional bond between humans and dogs is not a modern invention. It is ancient. It is baked into the relationship from nearly the beginning. And evolutionarily, that bond may have changed both species. Brian Hare, an evolutionary anthropologist at Duke University, who has spent decades studying canine cognition, has argued that dogs evolved a unique ability to read human communicative gestures, something that even our closest primate relatives, chimpanzees, cannot do as well. A dog can follow your pointed finger. It can read your face. It can interpret your emotional state. These are not tricks. They are the result of thousands of generations of natural selection for animals that were better at cooperating with humans. Peter Savolainen, a geneticist at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm and one of the world's leading authorities on dog origins, has noted that the benefits flowed in both directions. Dogs that were better at reading humans survived better near human camps. Humans who were better at cooperating with dogs hunted more successfully, defended their camps more effectively, survived harder winters. The 2 species were shaping each other simultaneously, a process biologists call coevolution. Your ancestors did not just tame an animal. They entered into a 40,000-year partnership that altered the course of both species. Reconstruct a night in a Paleolithic camp somewhere in Ice Age Europe. Your ancestors are huddled around a fire, maybe 8 to 15 of them. The temperature outside is below freezing. The nearest rival group is 3 days' walk away. A cave lion, one of the largest felids that ever lived, is somewhere in the dark hills above the valley. Your ancestors cannot see in the dark. They cannot smell what is downwind. They sleep in shifts, but even the awake ones miss things. The dogs sleeping at the edge of the camp, and there might be 3 or 4 of them, do not miss things. Their ears are always rotating. Their noses are always working. The moment something approaches, the camp knows about it before it arrives. The lion circles once and moves on. It has learned that this particular group is too alert, too noisy, too much trouble. Morning comes. The hunters move out, the dogs go with them, ranging ahead, flushing prey, chasing wounded animals to exhaustion. The hunt returns with meat, the dogs get the scraps, everyone survives another day. Now run that same scenario without the dogs. The lion circles the camp. The sleeping lookout misses it. The attack comes from a direction no one is watching. Or the hunt goes out and comes back empty because without dogs, your ancestors can only kill what they can get close enough to ambush, and today the prey is too alert, too fast, too far away. Small margins. But survival across tens of thousands of years is built on small margins repeated endlessly. Here is what makes this history genuinely strange to sit with. The dog lying at your feet right now, wherever you are, is the product of one of the longest and most consequential partnerships in the history of life on this planet. Not a few centuries, not a few thousand years, tens of thousands of years of mutual shaping, mutual dependence, mutual survival. Your dog can read your face, not because someone taught it to, because the ones who could not were not around long enough to pass anything on. And somewhere in your own biology, in the parts of your nervous system that calm down when a dog is near, in the oxytocin that releases when you make eye contact with one, your body still remembers the arrangement too. It is the middle of the night. The fire has burned down to almost nothing. Outside, somewhere in the dark, something is moving. The animal beside you knows, and because it knows, you will make it to morning. You always did.